Well, hello. The night's going to be a great night. If you've ever struggled in a relationship, this is going to be the talk for you because we're going to have a good conversation to where we're going to talk about how you've struggled and some brutal and honest truths about struggling in relationships because that's where we are. Because life happens, right? And things happen, and relationships are the lifeblood of everything in our lives. So I want to give you some truths. I want to give you some thoughts, right? And in this way, we're going to get better at the end of this thing. So if you're here, hit me up in the comments. Let's make sure these comments are working today. And I'm going to give you some new music I found, right? As we start the Everyday Leader Live. I'm going back to my roots, guys. I'm going back to my roots. I am a huge nerd. Are you guys nerds? Is anybody else here like a Marvel / comic book fan? I'm not talking about just the movies. I'm talking about the actual, comic books. I'm one of those guys. I used to own comic books all the time. Hello, Sean. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. I know the comments are now working. We're excited about this. My coach actually was talking to me about the value of a pre-show. Where you just kind of have this little fireside chat with some people as we start doing this, and then we'll jump into the content in a second because I want to get to know you guys better. And I want to get to hear your thoughts. And I got Natalie on here. She's saying, such a nerd. Yeah, my nerd friends. We've got all sorts of stuff. Man, I'm going to tell you, it's one of those nights. We are going to have a good time. We're going to have some real talk tonight. So we had to have our Indiana Jones theme there. We're going to have some real good talk tonight because guess what? You're in a relationship. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if any of that. Well, I actually care, but it doesn't matter what level of relationship you're in a relationship. And the fact that you're in a relationship just means you're going to have trouble, right? Matter of fact, our question that I want to give you tonight is simply this. It's like, hey, have you ever struggled in a relationship? Let me know in the comments. What have you ever struggled? And if so, what were some of your struggles? What were some of the things that you say this was one of the biggest struggles in relationship? Because I'm going to tell you these brutal conversations tonight, and I'm going to be real. Like we're going to get like stone cold real, get like they say in the deep South, get naked kind of real. Because I want to see, as always, this is a show devoted to helping you be a leader worth following, helping you to rise up to that level, to live out your God-given design, God-given purpose. And to do that, we've got to break off some stereotypes. We've got to break off some things in our lives. We've got to look at things from a point of view that is like, maybe I am doing that, and maybe that's what's holding me back. Because if it really is holding you back, then if you can somehow break through that area, then guess what happens? You get to go to the next level. And all those little things, those little nice things that you wanted, the things like, I want more money and I want a better job and I want to start my own business and I want better relationships. All of those things are on the other side of you breaking through that lie that you believe, because you've been lied to. I mean, if you saw the little thing, you have been lied to, my friends, because guess what? And it may have been somebody in your life. It may be somebody in somebody you work for. And I'm going to tell you, most likely it's probably you. It's probably you who've lied to yourself the most, right? If you're somebody who says, I've never lied to myself, I'm going to say, you are wrong, my friend. That is not true. You have lied to yourself. Matter of fact, you have probably lied to yourself every single day of your life. And you probably don't even realize it because you've been telling the lie so long and you've been believing it for so long that it's become your truth. Let that sink in for a second. A lie told long enough and loud enough is now your truth. And so, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. Let's pull out some lies before we even get into this. I'm not good enough. Anybody ever say that? Have you ever said that? I'm not good enough. Have you ever said, hey, I'm just too fat? I'm just too stupid. And have you guys ever said things like that? Because these are things we say every single day. And these are things that we believe, and these are lies that is actually pulling us down so we're not living at the greatest potential that we have in our lives, right? Natalie over here, we're going to look at some of you guys. Natalie over here struggles to allow myself to be who I am. Communication and trust are huge struggles. Thank you for that. My brother from another mother here, literally, after a failed marriage, I learned a lot. Yeah, man, failure is always the womb of success. If you ever keep that, put that in your pocket, in your tool belt. Failure is always the womb of success. So when you fail, when you learn from it, it's an amazing stretch into something successful, which is where you are right now. I am still learning. However, I just want to be the best version of myself for my wife. I think that's admirable. All right. Over there on Facebook, we're going to recognize you. Yes, what certain people talk too much. You can't get to make a contribution. The leader likes to be heard. Yeah, I mean, there is some of that. Now, obviously, I don't see who Facebook user is, so let me know who you are. But you're absolutely right. There's some people who love to talk a lot, right? And then there's some people who have this really need to be the only one talking. There's a difference between someone who talks a lot and someone who needs to be the only one talking. And I think that's a huge thing. And I've been in both those type of relationships. Here we go. Here is that mainly communication and trust. Absolutely. And here we go. And we're going to be real honest. Yes, not good enough, too fat, unattractive, stupid. Listen, these are all lies we believe. Well, today we're going to kill those lies, right? We're going to give it the buzzer of death, right? We're going to give it the Mario sound. That's the death sound in Mario, because I'm going to tell you, today we're going to kill those things. We're going to look at some things and we're going to kill some lies on this show today. So here we go. Ready for this? So you say I'm ready. Put that in the comments. Say I'm ready. And we're going to throw this up here. And I hope you guys can see that, because we're still making sure. Let me know if you see that. If you don't see that, say that. Say, hey, listen, I see it loud and see it. We're going to do it. But here's what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about the brutal truths about relationships, guys. And this is applicable if you're a leader. This is applicable if you're married. This is applicable if you run a business, because everything in life deals with relationships. Matter of fact, everything in your life, honestly, rises and falls on the quality of the relationships in your life, right? And I think that's really what we fail to understand. Now I've been a leadership guy for 10, 15, 20 years now, about 20 years. And I've been, I got the master's degree and I got the certifications and I've been around the block that says, hey, everything rises and falls on leadership, right? And I absolutely 100% believe that. But what is leadership? Leadership is relationship. Let that sink in. All you guys who are like, I'm not a leader. Again, we talked about lies. If you say that, guess what? You are a leader, because leadership is relationships. When you are in a relationship and you have the power to influence, you're in a relationship that leads. Influence is leadership, right? And so when you get into these conversational pieces, just really look at what it's saying. If everything rises and falls on leadership, and leadership is influence is trust, and trust is relationships, then ultimately everything rises and falls on relationships. Now, there are different types of relationships, obviously. Listen, I'm married. Some of you guys are married. That's one level of relationship. That's a very intimate relationship. Matter of fact, my wife asked me to do a show on relationships because she wanted to learn more. So this show, and she's on, my wife Mary, she's in the comments over there, and this show is dedicated to her. And I'm going to tell you, guess what? Gotta love on the wife, right? Get all that little sexy time going, right? On the air. So here's the thing. So here's the thing, guys. So it's all about relationships. Maybe you're a leader, right? You're actually leading a company, a corporation, those things. And now you have employees. Now you have 1099s. Now you have, for those guys who don't know that, contractors who work for you. Now you're leading all those places, and you're in these places doing sales. So you got customers you're leading. That's another type of relationship. Children, another type. Work relationships, another type. So we all live in the context of relationships. Every one of us. And all of this stuff will rise and fall on that relationship. Now, here's the thing. Let me pull this back for you so you can see that. Your relationships, guys, and remember, I want you guys to make sure, let's talk back and forth. Hit me up in the comments. Let's ask your questions in the comments. I don't like this always being like, just let me give you the content, because I got some amazing content and we're going to help you change your life. But I want to have conversations too. So what you say is matter. And this show is for you, and it's about you. And I bring this value each and every week in order to get you and help you break through those things, to live out your God-given design, live out your God-given purpose, so that you can be a leader worth following. And here's it is, man. Everything in life comes down to the fact that you have your quality of life, your finances, your overflow, your joy is all intimately put together with your relationships. Every bit of it, right? Well, what do you mean my finances? Guess what? When you broke, depressed with nobody to go, you go buy a whole bunch of bonbons. You spend a lot more to make yourself feel better, right? And so you get out there and your relationships are much affected by, or your finances are affected by your relationships. Maybe some of you are on the other side, like me, who's excited to be with people. So we go out and we like to spend money with people, right? So your mood really affects your finances, your joy. If you don't have relationships, you don't have joy because you were made for relationships. That's what the Bible says. Psychology affirms that you were made for relationships, right? Nothing. And if you think you're not, then we need to have a talk, you and I. We need to get here and have a great talk, all right? Because you have a relationship, right? And then your quality of life is totally in this place of how well you manage your relationships. That's really what it comes down to. If you manage your relationships more often, better, higher quality, better expectations, then the quality of your life will improve. Your business will improve. Your cash flow will improve. Your joy will improve. You see where I'm going with this? This is where it's coming in. And so I want you to hear that because it's all about the relationships, guys. It's all about that relationship thing. So let me take a moment here. And before I jump into the actual 5 thing, let me show you the thing. We got this so good. I'm like so excited. Look at this. 5 brutal truths about relationships, right? So, there we go. See, I'm still learning this. I'm still learning the buttons. We'll get there in a second, but I do want you to hear this, guys. Here's the deal. When we get through this, I'm going to sit here and do this, and I'm going to break this down, but I want you to do me a favor. I want you to be at a place where you are not that's not questioning. I want you to question where you're not going to be like, oh, I know a person like that. Oh, this message is for my husband. He needs to be listening to this one. Or this message is for the so-and-so, right? This is not what, because every one of us there and be like, I know somebody this should apply to. I need to share it with them. Now I'm going to tell you, go ahead and share it with them. But this message, I want you to be with me, and I want it to be real, right? This is my soapbox moment. I want this to be a real thing where I'm giving you content, but I want you to ask the question, where does this apply in my life? Where does this apply in my life? Because this is going to be for you. You can never change someone else until you first change yourself. And if you can't change yourself, then everybody around you will not benefit from the fact that you're changing. All right. So if we're going to do that, I want that one question, definitely tag people, definitely share this, hit like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, all the nice stuff. But I need you to sit back with me and let me coach you. I need to sit back and let's have these conversations and say, where am I in what's being said? Because that's going to be where breakthrough comes in. That's going to be where breakthrough comes in. So let's see here. What's this one? This says here, it says, you're the 20th century Casey Kasem, huh? Yep. Reverting to music. Yep, definitely. I love this stuff. I enjoy my life. I enjoy having fun. If I can't have fun, I can't do this. End of story. So thank you for that. All right, let's get the jumping in. Now, make sure if there's ever a time where I'm in a half screen and you don't see the other half, just shout out to me and say, I don't see the other half, because there's always another half. So here's the deal. All right, so we're going to talk about 5 brutal truths, and I'm going to welcome you guys to the show. And my mom is watching too. And she keeps telling me I am not a nerd. Guess what, mother? I am a nerd, but nerd is not a negative thing. Nerds are sexy. Nerds are cool. And nerds are actually just people referred to nerd culture. I love it. I'm into the whole Harry Potter / Indiana Jones / Marvel / DC. I even used to read all the Iron Horse comics and all the stuff that nobody liked, the off-shelf things. So yeah, definitely. All right, let's jump into this. Number one. Oh, I went the wrong way. Number 1, people are afraid. The number one reason why you may be having the lower quality of relationships that you want, right? There is a level that you want. There's an expectation. You want to be happy, right? Let me know. Is that what you want out of a relationship? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be not alone kind of thing? Hashtag never alone. Is that you? But the deal is that you and I have to come to a place where we understand there's a lot of fear in relationships. And if you think about this, the key is people are afraid to be vulnerable, right? And the latest craze, I'm going to tell you, here you go. That, who can tell me what sound that's from, guys? Yeah, see, that's the thing, guys. For all those who didn't know, that was the Among Us thing. Because you think somebody's an imposter, right? Because there has been so many times in your life, and it goes all the way back to childhood. Listen, you and we have hurts. Everybody has hurts. There's a cycle of hurt happening. And the hurts that you get from your childhood, whether it be your family, your friends, your school, whether you're bullied or not, it just adds up. And when you don't deal with it, it creates more and more and more inside of you. And you get this place where you become bitter, and then you get more bitter, and then you get mistrusting. And now you refuse to be vulnerable because at the place of vulnerability, you believe that if I'm vulnerable, I can be hurt. If I can be hurt, then that relationship's not for me. Not realizing that the wall that we put up comes into a place that says, I don't want to be hurt, so but I want relationships. That can't happen. You put a wall between relationships when you say, I want relationships. I have to accept that I'm going to be hurt. And that's a fact, right? That's a part of relationships. So if relationships are going to thrive, if relationships are going to be at this place of healthy, and I want healthy, I don't need to be in a relationship. I need to be in a healthy relationship. And if a relationship is going to thrive, it needs to come to a place where the walls come down. And it doesn't have to be with everybody. I mean, don't be that guy. Don't be that girl who sits there and says, hi, I just met you. Let me tell you my whole life story. Let's talk about this. No, that's not who we are supposed to be. This is more about, hey, there are 2 or 3 people in my life that I am completely willing to be honest and transparent, that I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I'm willing to trust. And if I'm at that place, then I can take those walls down. And that is the place of true relationship, is when you can trust another human being. But here's the problem. Here's the challenge, guys. The challenge is we're too afraid to take the wall down. And we've allowed one person, just one bad person, one bad relationship to ruin it for every single person. And you've seen that with the women. Like a lot of times with ladies, you get a lot of ladies, and this is not trying to be stereotypical or anything. And I'll go to guys in a second. You get a lot in the ladies who sit there, the women who sit there and say, I don't trust men. Why don't they trust men? Because either A, their father hurt them, or B, they've been in a couple bad relationships with guys. So there's a projection of all men must be like this. So I'm going to close myself off until they can prove to me they're not. Now, the men, I'm not going to leave you out of this either, because we have struggles with vulnerability. Because with vulnerability for men, somewhere along the line, somebody told you had to be strong. Someone told you that you had to be the top of the meat, the power, the awesome, the king of the hill. And because of that, vulnerability became a weakness. When in fact, vulnerability is the greatest strength of your life. But vulnerability became a weakness for you guys. And for me, and so you refuse to share or show vulnerability because you're too afraid to be weak or appear to be weak. When in fact, the more vulnerable you can be, the stronger you can be, the more influence you can have, the better people can trust you. And I'm going to tell you what's challenging for relationships with men, and is that men are transitional, or not, they're transactional, not transformational, which means if a man has a problem and he goes to another man, the man tries to fix the problem instead of actually trying to find out, like, let's do life together. It's like, okay, here's your problem. Here's 3 steps to fix your problem. We're good. We're done. Let's move on with our lives. No relationship was built. No vulnerability was given. No listening happened. And that's how men do relationships, especially if you're a driven, high D driven individual, or high I, the people who are high energy like me, that where you're just like, okay, here's a problem, fixed, move on. So where women are, one relationship may ruin it for many relationships. Men are like more, relationships are weakness. I don't know why I was tripping over there on my words, but vulnerability is weakness. So there's this thing inside of people that need to come back to a place that says vulnerability is a strength. And here's the other part. Not one relationship ruins it for all. It causes us to be challenged. It causes us to take a second guess and maybe even be a little wiser. But not one relationship can ruin all relationships. It's just not the way it should have been. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But the challenge of that comes down to you and I need to come to a place where we're no longer being guided by a hurt feeling. We're no longer being guided by a place where we're like, oh, so-and-so did such and such, so therefore I can't do such and such with this one, and this one's going to hurt me. And it's inevitability. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to say something that's stupid, right? And I'm going to apologize for it. It's inevitable that you're going to say something stupid to me and you're going to apologize for it. Maybe, right? I know I will if I say it's stupid. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But here's the deal. We have to get to a place where these things in our lives are no longer weaknesses. Vulnerability should be a strength. One relationship should not ruin it for all relationships. And if in the case of that, we come to understand that if we're afraid to be in relationship, then we're going to disqualify us from relationship. Let that sink in for a second. If you're afraid to be in relationships, then you're going to allow yourself to be disqualified from relationships. Just because you interact with people doesn't mean there's a depth of relationship. Okay? Our goal is to feel fulfilled and joy, and that takes us walking the path to deepening our relationship with one another. That's really what it comes down to, guys. So as we move forward, that was let's go into the next one, man. This is real stuff. This is stuff nobody else is really talking about. Because I want you to be that leader worth following, that living out that God-given capacity, that God-given purpose, that God-given design to do what you were called to do, to live that higher level, guys. And today it's all about being that leader worth following, guys. And so when we think about this, before we go into number 2, let's ask this. Do you guys, is there any questions as we go forward? I want to make sure that I'm answering all your questions. Drop them in the comments. Let's have that conversation. I'm going to welcome my new crew. I'm doing a stream live over there on D Live as well. It's called D Live. It's on a blockchain, which is quite interesting. I'll do another live about that. But here's the deal. So we all come down to this place of we want to be better at relationships. So let's go into number 2. Number 2. And oops, I want to take that off the screen, guys. Isn't it fun? I love this stuff. So here we go. Number 2. And we're going to do a drum roll, please. Number 2, we come down to people are just generally selfish. Can somebody give an amen to that? Do you realize that? Do you know that some people are just generally, okay, let's just say most people are just generally selfish. And I got to tell you this. Let me tell you this. Self-care is not selfish. All right, I want to make the demarcation right here. Self-care is not selfish. When you focus on yourself and you take care of yourself, that is the best you can do, because the more you're sharpened, the more rested you are, the better you are. That's okay, because that means you can give. That means you can be with people. That means you can have a better edge in communication and all that stuff. But when you're not at that sharp edge, you tend to be more brain fog. You tend to more stumble. You tend to do a lot of things that you're not normally doing. But so when you do self-care, let's get out of the lie that self-care is selfish. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Self-care is not selfish, guys. And I want you to be in that same vein with me, because we've gotten this culture where if I focus on myself, it's automatically I'm selfish. No. Let's not. No. That's not what it is. So here's the key here. Authentic relationships is unavailable to selfish people. And this is where we get into this place of really challenging ourselves. Like when you're in a relationship and you take everything for yourself, or you take the greatest seats, or you take, to feel comfortable, you do all the things to get yourself to this place of, all right, this is mine, I feel good, and whatever's left over, it belongs to the other person. That is more selfish behavior, right? That is a place where you're like, everybody, me first, everybody else second. And now even people who give tend to have a me first attitude inside, right? Why? Because sometimes the people who are the most altruistic tend to struggle with this, because they say, if I can give enough, then I'll get in return. So it's a reverse way of doing it. Now, is everybody like that? No, not everybody's like that. But remember, you and I have got to understand that we have this past that we lived. We had this past where you and I have been through something. And when you're through something, like say if you were through being poor, or if you were through some trauma, or you lived in a place where you had to fight for everything you got. If you had those types of experiences, well, as you grow up, you begin to perpetrate those and continue those cycles of got to get what's mine, got to get what's mine, got to get what's mine, got to get what's mine. Well, here's the thing. If you've always got to get what's yours, then you're going to have a problem with being in authentic relationships, because you're going to really believe that everybody else is going to be the same way and everybody's going to grab theirs. So you got to grab yours. So you become suspicious of people, and then you work harder to get yours. Right? Well, what if we change that around? What if we flip that upside down and say, you know what? We can give equally. Like maybe if I sit there and say, well, what if I give up my seat that I love for you today, not all the days, but today, and I offer it to you, what ripple effect would that happen? There was a whole movement that says pay it forward, where you pay for somebody something and then they pay it somebody something, and it just keeps rippling, that act of kindness. What if we did stuff like that instead of saying mine, mine, mine? It sounds like a really bad Finding Nemo episode where it's all the seagulls, mine, 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 right? And instead, why don't we move from the mine mentality, like all mine, to be like, how can I help somebody today? What is one thing that I can do today to help my spouse, to help my person who I'm serving, whether it be my customer, my employee, my 1099, whoever that is? Maybe that's what you're going to be asking yourself. How can I today actually lean into this and say, hey, let's do this thing, and how can I add value? That's what it really comes down to. Because when you begin to ask, how do I add value? You begin to get into a place where you're like, now it's not all about me, it's about we. Think about that. Let's make it about us, not just the me show. That's why I love having comments and conversation and questions, because I don't want it to be about the me show. I want it to be about where I'm scratching your itches and hitting your greatest thoughts and your greatest fears and your greatest questions. Why? Because this is about you, because I want you to be that leader worth following. And it just comes into giving you a platform and a space to speak, giving you a platform and space to ask questions, to give you a platform and a space to get out of your normal routine of my bubble, and get into somebody else's bubble for a second and say, okay, how can we further grow each other? How can we push each other? These are the mentalities we need when we're moving from the me mentality to the we mentality, because it's all about us. My heart is to help us get across the finish line, not me, us. Because if we can get across the finish line, we're all winners, not just you and me, not just you or not just me, but we're all winners. We're all winners. And so we got over here. Let's say this before we go into the next one. Oops. You didn't see that. You saw nothing. Let me turn this off. I thought I pulled that off. You saw nothing. I do want to say here, Natalie did say this. Self-care allows you to give the best of yourself to your relationships. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. We're even going to go and say, where is the thing here? We got all sorts of stuff. Here we go. We got new things today. We're excited. We got new things. And I absolutely 100% agree with that it does give you the best of all things. Guys, as you guys come on, thank you so much for being with us. I still got a couple more to go. My name is Jim Bergen. For all you guys who are new to me, maybe not have watched before, maybe you're just tuning in. We do this every single week where we go live. We answer questions. We do new videos each week and all that. And my whole heart is, guys, is to help you be that leader worth following, because we really focus on leadership development to get you beyond those limiting beliefs, to get you moving into making money, to get you moving into living out your God-given design, God-given purpose, and on this life, so you can be at that level of joy and fulfillment. I get sick and tired. All right, so here's the soapbox moment. I get sick and tired of people being in a place where they're unfulfilled and doing things they hate just to create stuff, right, that they don't even enjoy. So why don't we change that? Why don't we create what we love by doing what we love, because we're actually becoming a person we actually love. That's really what it comes down to, guys. And that's why we're talking about these conversations around relationships. That's why we're talking about these conversations in the context of relationships, because here's the deal. Here's the bottom line. We all have relationships. You and I are in a relationship right now, even in these conversations. I may have never met you, but we're in relationship. And if that's the case, then, as we go through this, like I said in the beginning, maybe you missed the first part, asking yourself, where do I see myself in these? Are you afraid? Do you have vulnerability? Are you somebody who's like really kind of a little bit more selfish than you like to admit? Right? These are about recognizing first and then moving beyond that recognition. Like, you can't change what you don't recognize. That's the problem. You cannot change what you don't recognize. So if you can't recognize it, we can't heal it. So this is part of that thing about helping you recognize those things. So we're going to go down to the next one, which we're going to do a drum roll, and hopefully I hit this the right way, and we're going to go Boom. Oh, I did that right. I am so excited. But that's the wrong one. But I got the sound right. It was good. So people lack understanding. Now, this is probably one of my favorite conversation pieces when it comes down to relationships and why people struggle in relationships is because people lack understanding. Now, this is not one of those things where you should call yourself an idiot because you're not an idiot. You're one of the most brilliant individuals on the planet. This is where you and I lack the understanding of relationships, who we're in relationship with, how they operate, all those things. And the key here is a lack of understanding brings confusion. Now, this may be a little bit of shock to you, and I want you to realize this. This is going to be a little bit of shock. People aren't like you, right? Right? People aren't like you. It's like that X-Files thing. I love X-Files, by the way. So here's the thing. People aren't like you. People aren't like me. So why is it that we think we're going to communicate in a way that I like to receive, and we're going to communicate that to everybody thinking they're going to love how I communicate, right? We just project who we are on everybody around us. And then we think that that's going to be good. When in reality, we have multiple personality types, right? There are now, if you watch any of my other videos, and you can go on my YouTube channel and see them, I do like 3 or 4 different videos on disc personality, DISC, drivers, influencers, steadies, conscientious, those that are driven, influencers, which are not your typical like social media influencers, but people who are high energy, like to talk. This guy's a high I. Then you got your S's, steady, relationship, C's, conscientious, logical, A plus B equals C every time, right? That's a 4 model I use because I find that the most valuable. It's behavior, it's communication, right? But you also got Enneagram and you got Myers-Briggs, and I'm a 7 on the Enneagram and I'm an ENFP on the Myers-Briggs, but they all have their value. But the understanding is when you're learning, right? Are you learning more about you? Or are you learning about your partner? Are you learning about your employees? Have you ever taken the moment to get into the place of saying, who am I in relationship with? Like, who are my key relationships? Like, don't do this with everybody. Like, if you know 400, 500,000 people, I got like 5,000 people who follow me on Facebook, like friends or something. And I'm not going to go through every single person and be like, well, this is this and this is this, and they got this and this is this and this is this and that's that and this is this and that's that, right? You're not going to do that. That's going to take a lot of time, and that's crazy. But the ones that are key relationships in your life, whether my wife, right, your spouse, if you have one, or your boyfriend, your girlfriend, right, your ferret, whatever you have that's in relationship with, the people you work with, it's the people you spend the most time with are people that we need to learn to understand. This is where we're going to dive deep in our personality by taking personality assessments. I do offer a DISC personality assessment. If you're interested, drop in the comments if you're interested in that. I can walk you through the process. But I do offer a DISC personality. It's a 30-page profile of who you are, everything from strengths, weaknesses, all that stuff. But here's the deal. If you learn about you, you learn how you interact with the world. If you learn about how you interact with the world, you know how you interact with people. And if you can interact with people, then you could begin to start understanding who they are. And then if I understand who they are, then guess what? I can begin to have awesome, healthy, wholesome relationships because now I know what they need. I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are. I know how they communicate. And I know that my style is different than their style, right? And I'll give you the perfect example. My wife's watching. Hi, honey. We're loving. And remember, we're still here with my wife. I love my wife, and I want to tell you, she's a high C personality. And what I said is high logical. A plus B always equals C. We never divert from the A plus B plus C equals thing. But here's what I know is that I'm a high I. I hate details. She loves them. So we get into this place where I have to what we call blend. This is understanding. This is just real-time understanding. I blend my personality, say the best way I can help her understand is by giving her a little bit more details. Now, I'm not going to come out and give you 5,000 details. Sorry, honey. I know you're watching this. I'm not going to give you 5,000 details, but I'm going to give you enough that may satisfy your need for details, right? And then I'm trying to help her understand she needs to give me less details and more to the point, right? This is about understanding everybody who's in your circle. This is about understanding everybody who's in your realm, right? I have people on this live. Let me do this for a second. I have people on this live, like my good friend and client, Natalie here, Coach Hot. She's still learning how personality influences how I am in relationships. She's what we call a high S, right? She's more on the introverted side. She's more on the the people, love one-on-one. And for like, if me and her, when we do our coaching calls, I soften my voice. Like I'm not as strong and straightforward with her. I soften my voice. And why? Because she's an incredible individual who's one of the most loyal people on the planet, but I understand how she receives in communication. So I have to model my communication in a way she receives. How many of you can say that you've ever taken the time to get out there and actually learn about the people you're with long enough to model or to blend your communication style, blend your behavior in a way that's going to be helpful to them and not helpful to you? It's even with the love languages. How many of you guys ever have the love language, right? You know what the love languages are? Throw that in the comment. What's your love language? Like my love language is words of affirmation. If you want to actually make me feel the best in the world, make me feel like I'm the most loved, then you sit there and you tell me nice things about me. Like seriously, it's not a prideful thing. It's not an arrogant thing. It's like, I love hearing nice things about me. It's a word of affirmation. My wife is quality time. Like you speak who you are. So like I'm calling everybody, like if you've ever been in a conversation with me, you're getting called a rock star, you're getting called all sorts of crazy things because I love you and I'm going to say you're the most awesome person on the planet. Why? Because I speak my love language, but my love language may not be your love language. And because of that, I speak a language that is foreign to you and you're like, man, that's cool. And I'm sitting there like, yo, aren't you feeling awesome? And you're like, yeah, maybe, right? Again, it's learning to understand the people you're with. And when you can learn to understand the people you're with, relationships begin to increase. Relationships increase, your quality of relationships increase, and you should go back really to your parents, to your kids, to your employees, to your customers, and really get a good understanding of who is who. What do they bring to the table? How do I communicate with them? And how can I get better? That's the big thing. How can I get better? Because when you start asking those questions, you begin to move into a place where you understand relationships and you will no longer be in that wall of, I just don't get it, right? We just don't understand each other. We're fighting all the time. It's because you lack understanding and you want to be who you are. And understanding doesn't mean I change who I am, but you want to be who you are so severely that you would cost the other person feelings, like you'll hurt their feelings or do something that at any cost to protect who you are. Remember, it goes back to that vulnerability. And the vulnerability comes into, listen, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm not changing who I am for you, but I can model or I can blend my personality or my thoughts or the way I talk so that you receive. Listen, it is one of those things where it doesn't matter how much you say. It matters how much people listen and then actually apply what you say. Because people don't really need to be listened to. They need to be heard. There's a big difference. And when you're heard, it means somebody caught the heart of what you're saying. Now, if you are somebody who's like, I want to be heard, then you're going to spend a lot of time on this and say, I want to understand people. I want to understand communication. And I want to do that because I want to be heard. If you're somebody who just wants to be listened to, you just ramble. And then oftentimes you forget that there's somebody else in the room that you're rambling to. Don't be listened to, be heard. To do that, you've got to understand people. Which is going to bring us to the next one on our list. So we're going to do this because we're going to actually have this really well. And boom. All right. I was early. It was just bad. Remember that sound? That's just bad. It was just, I get the buzzer. All right. So this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves. I think this is one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm navigating relationships with people. Now, if you're guilty of this one, I'm going to challenge you to work through it. And here's the deal. Here's the why. People play victim. All right. I've been in relationships where people started arguments, people started, fights, whatever it was. And they were like, oh, but if you didn't say this, then this would have never happened and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. One of my biggest pet peeves, it's people who don't take responsibility because it kills trust. If everything is everybody else's fault in your life, if everything is everybody else's fault, then you really are not in a relationship because you're just somebody who's going to have a fight waiting for a place to happen. Because the reality of the situation is there are responsibility that we must take in everything. It takes two people to argue. It takes two people to digress in relationship. Not one, but two, right? At least two. And that's with your customers, that's with your parents, that's with your kids, that's with your spouse. It takes two. Now, I may not be responsible for starting it, but I can take responsibility for continuing it because maybe I decided to be offended. And if you've ever watched one of my lives, I've said it before, offense is a choice. But maybe I decided to be offended. If I decided to be offended and go back after you, that is my fault. Not what you said, but how I respond to you is my fault. And I can take personal responsibility for what is mine. I can't take personal responsibility for your stuff. You can't take personal responsibility for my stuff, but I can take personal responsibility for me. Right? And if you're somebody who is like, it's everybody else's fault all the time, no responsibility, people can't trust you and everybody knows it but you. And I'm going to tell you, I've been in these relationships where there's actually people I don't talk to anymore because every time you bring something up, every time you bring something challenging up, and it's always like, no, it's your fault, it's this fault, or they digress into trying to argue with you or prove to you the greatness of they are. And you can see it in all their posts, right? They're so great. They're so great. Oh my goodness. The sun shines because they live. And then when something happens in their lives, like anybody challenges them, anybody disagrees with them, or if it's something that they don't agree with in general, they're going to come after you. And then it's all your fault they came after you, man. That's kind of like narcissistic tendencies. And I want you to hear that because people who don't take responsibility are people you have a hard time trusting. Right. And that this is a relationship killer. And when you're in leadership, especially when you're in leadership in life, it's a relationship killer. Because if I can't trust you, I can't give you responsibilities. If I can't trust you, I can't be able to get out there and give you that leadway. Whether if we're working together, I can't give you leadway because I don't trust you, right? If you're married and you have a hard time trusting your spouse, you need to sit there and say, pause, stop, don't move, and go fix your trust issues with your spouse. Okay. Yeah. Go. I'm saying that, like, if you're somebody who is in a relationship and you have in a marriage, let's talk about marriage first. If you're in a marriage and you have trust issues with your spouse, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Stop and get in there and fix those trust issues, whatever it needs to happen. Right?
No.
Right? Because you just got to stop. And you got to get to a place where you quit passing blame and sit there and say, how do we fix this? Because your trust, my trust, is imperative to the success of our relationship. Like, I have fired clients because I couldn't trust them any longer. I'm like, yo, we just can't work together anymore because I just don't trust you. I have walked away from people that I've hired. When I've had trust issues, I want to get to a place and say, how do we get beyond this? How do we fix this? And I'm going to tell you, a lot of your trust. Now, there are some legitimate trust issues. Now, some of you guys are coming out of bad relationships and you want to move into this new relationship and you're having trust issues. Remember, don't project previous relationships onto new relationships, right? Don't project the hurts. But understand this, guys, is we have to work on the trust issues. I always lean on give people trust and let them lose it instead of giving nobody trust and let them earn it. I'm always on the side. Let me trust you first and see where it goes and allow you to lose it instead of having the exhaustion of, no, I'm never going to trust you until you prove it. Because here's the deal. They're never going to prove it because you've already got that in your mind. They're just never going to prove it. And I to hear that because here's the deal. Let me do the soapbox moment here. Soapbox. Here's the deal, guys. This is the challenge is learning to take responsibility for what you've done wrong and not being insecure to where you take responsibility for what everybody does wrong. There's a big difference in the two. Again, I can only take moments that I am responsible for. My wife can only take moments that she is responsible for. I cannot take responsibility for her. You cannot take responsibility. She cannot take responsibility for me. And like Out Loud says, it kills trust and is exhausting. Oh my God. It is so exhausting. Natalie kind of brings in there too. So it takes two people to make it or break it. Yep. That's right. And then Sean over here is saying you can't continue to live as a victim. At some point, you've got to have to overcome. Absolutely. Because let me say this. Let's have some real talk for a minute. Let's just say this. there are people in my wife and I's life who have literally walked out on my wife, both of us and my kids, like people who are very, very connected family, and they've walked out, right? They've disqualified themselves from being in a life with my children, with us, because they play the victim. And they play the victim so much that they projected it on us as if it was our fault. And they lost the ability to see my kids grow up. Not because that's something my wife and I were like, yo, you're never coming back. No, it was they legitimately blamed us for things that they did themselves. And it has really taken them out of the context of the life of my children, the life of me and my wife, like 6, 7 years now. And it's a challenge. Guys, don't be on your deathbed regretting the relationships you never repaired. Repair them today. Stop playing the victim and start getting up there and being the person that you know that you were meant to be and live most healthy. If somebody's hurt you, you do not need to let them back in your life. You don't. This is not a thing you need to let them back in your life, but you don't need to carry that with you to the next relationship. That's really what, and this kind of brings us down to the last one. Boom. Oh, we're still doing this thing. There we go. Now we got it. See, we're hitting buttons. And this brings us down to the last one. People just don't know how to be in relationship. Just think about that. Let that sink in for a second. People don't know how to be in relationships, right? And I think there's a key to this. And the key is really, boom, bad examples actually produce unhealthy relationships. They're unhealthy cycles, guys. They are so unhealthy because you have seen unhealthy things that have now created unhealthy patterns in your life. And I think if we really get a hold of this one, this is probably the most telling, the most real, because yeah, you're going to be afraid. Yeah, you don't really understand people's personality types, and these are things we need to work over. Yeah, there are these times where you're going to struggle with playing the victim and all this, but the reality of it is a lot of this was taught to you. A lot of this was taught to you because you just don't know how to be in a relationship because you've never seen a good example. And I really got to harp on this for a second. And this is something that's really like moves and weighs on me because I watch so many people that are in divorce. I watch so many people that are failing at their current relationships because every relationship before that they saw was bad. Divorce, fighting, all of that stuff. So what happens is if I've been through a bad relationship and I bring that into my current relationship and my current relationship and I have kids, then where do you think that bad relationship is going to go? It's time to stop the cycle, right? My mother, I'm going to say hi, Mom. My mother is probably one of the most bravest women I've ever met in my life. She's a single mom who raised 3 kids. She raised me, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not the easiest person. Okay, I'm not the easiest person to raise. I just wasn't. And she raised the 3 of us with everything she had, doing it pretty much on her own, working all the time, building a life, trying to do the best she could to give us the life that she thought we wanted or she thought we needed. It was when you look back on it, it's the most amazing story. She worked all the way up until she had a stroke. And in the story, you think about that, it's like if there was ever a badge of honor, she should get it. Right? If we had like literal badge of honors that we can give people, she should get it. But when you think about this on the other side of this, my mother was a single mom. My dad was a deadbeat who left when I was 4. Think about 4, somewhere around there. And I'm 40. How old am I? 43 this year. Next month. Next month is my birthday. And I'm 43. So I've spent that whole time never seeing what a healthy relationship was. There was never 2 people because I believe healthy relationships take 2. It takes 2 people to raise kids. And the single moms and the single dads out there who are doing it on their own are amazing heroes because they're doing both jobs, their mom and dad. And that takes something. That takes guts, that takes courage. But on the flip side of that, when you really look at it objectively, there's never been an example of what that relationship should have looked like because the one left. And I got the work ethic, I got my love for people from my mother, but the one left. My wife had a similar thing. The one left. right? And then she grew up in a series of very unfortunate events. And a lot of people, if not everybody in her family, were all divorced at one point. So we decided to be better. We decided to change it, right? And we decided that we're never going to get divorced. My wife was diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses. We decided we're never getting divorced. And there have been times where we've come very close, I'm sure, but we decided, we committed to it because we decided to be a relationship. We modeled it off the people that mattered in our lives, like people like my mother, people like, different people in our lives, people you probably wouldn't even know. But here's the deal. We said, these are the people that are good examples. And you know what's cool is that my sister is now been married for, umpteenth years, like totally going strong, 5 kids, you know? And so the cycle in the relationships of my family's life and the lives of my wives, our children and stuff are changed because of decisions to be in proper relationship. Now, there are always going to still be problems. Yes, there's going to be still be problems. There's going to be challenges and things like that. But the reality of the situation is there's so many people that have bad examples, or not even bad examples, just unhealthy examples or incomplete examples that are passing these on because they've never taken the moment to stop and say, is there a better way? Is there a different way to where I can get out there and do the thing that I know I'm supposed to be doing, that I know could be better? And that may take you to read a book. That may take you to stop using like The Simpsons and Family Guy as your models and get into a place where you're like, what does a healthy relationship look like? I use the Bible as a model of healthy relationships. Whatever that is for you, what does that look like? And how are you going to do different? How are you going to be better? What are some of the things in your life that is going to bring you to a place that's going to be the most healthiest to get over these hangups and these challenges that you may have, and bring your life into a congruence of healthy relationships and joy, right? And just for a bonus, let me tell you this. This is for a bonus. You can start today. Like, this is not a pitch to get you to join my coaching program, because I'm not pitching you today. I would love everybody on this program to join my coaching program, yes, but this is not a pitch. And when I say start today, what I totally mean to that, wherever you were, wherever bad relationship, bad example, whatever thing that you've been through, guess what? You just decide today that you're going to be different, that you're going to be better. For all the single moms out there and single dads, because there are a lot of single dads and they're often forgotten. For all the single moms and single dads, that may be you taking and calling your kids and say, how can we get to be better at our relationship, right? Kids, it may be calling your parents and saying, yo, we've been out of touch. We've been this. How can we get better at this? Maybe if you're an entrepreneur, like I am, it's getting into with the people that work for you, your virtual assistants, your 1099s, and saying, hey, I want to be in a better relationship with you because I want to get to know you so that we can create an incredible team that rocks and makes 7, 8, 9 figures, right? Maybe it's the spouse. Wherever you were with your spouse, it's sitting there today and saying, hey, how do we be better today than we were yesterday? For you guys who just got out of a relationship, and I know there's a couple of you guys on here who just got out of maybe a bad relationship, the way you do that, maybe it's a relationship with yourself. Maybe it's a relationship saying, how can I get better and heal from this before I jump back into the relationships that I want to be in? Because you're not meant to be alone. All right, I just want to tell you, you're not meant to be alone, guys. So don't think you're going to be a hermit or any of that stuff. Not happening. But how do I get better? Right? How do I get better? It's just a question. You got to think about it. And as you think about it, you just come to this place and you do what scares you. And that's get better at relationships, guys. Hey, let me give you something away for free. Now, if you've been on my streams before, you know all about this. If you've not, I want to get an offer to you today. This is free. This is just how to get start with with who you are. If you don't have it, I say get it. I grab it because this is the introduction to a DISC personality profiling. This is a free version of this where it'll give you an overview of who you are, how you interact with the world. I do my stuff better than most people's paid stuff when it's free. They're low level stuff, and I want you to have it. All right, go to that leadwithjim.com. You'll grab a copy of it. And if you want to take the next step and actually have a coaching relationship or join one of the programs, I'm happy to talk with you. But other than that, guys, I don't want you to leave without really grabbing hold of something. In the comments, let me know what spoke to you the most. What really spoke to you the most? I do want to say, let's see, Natalie there says, that scares me for Arthur, the unhealthy model of relationships, doing what I can to teach him better. Guess what? You're going to be better because now you're equipped to really think about it. Now you're equipped to really kind of get into those conversations. You're going to do better. Arthur is going to be amazing. And for all you guys who don't know, Arthur is her baby. Such a cute kid. Such a beautiful baby. So what it is. So be that person, guys. Be that person. Which one spoke to you? Which one really stuck out to you about the type of person, the type of relationship you want to be in? You about some of the hangups, some of the challenges. And before we go, we got a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, any thoughts, concerns, moans, groans, true confessions, let's talk about it now. Let's hit it up. Hit me up in the comments. And as you're doing that, I'm going to put some mood music on. Not the one I wanted, but it'll work. Yeah, see? And as we roll down in our live today, in our live show, guys, ask your questions. I got a few extra seconds, minutes that I want to share with you. Anything that you have an itch you want to scratch. But the reality of it, guys, we do this live every Friday. Every Friday. I thought about, making it on a different day, but we're live for Friday. We do leadership development. Again, this is really about developing you where you are to God's given design, God's given purposes, God's given everything inside of you so that you can live it out on this life. My name is Jim. I'm the Everyday Leader, and I'm trying to help you be that leader worth following. And it's just so grateful to be with each and every one of you guys. We do have a couple things here. A new person to the show. Thank you so much for being with us. Luxurious Looks. We have to learn people in order to know how to communicate with them. Absolutely, 100% agree with you. We have to learn people and how to communicate with them. And you know what? It's about learning yourself. How do I communicate? And we talked about that a little in the show. How I communicate, how they communicate, and then how the two can go together. Absolutely 100% agree with you. Thank you for the comment. Much appreciated. Here's what Natalie says. Natalie says, definitely learning how others are and to learn and adapt to communicate their way. Absolutely. And you know what's beautiful about that, Luxurious and Natalie? The good thing is that once you learn how you communicate and you understand how they communicate, guess what? You can now teach people what you need. Did you see how that worked? You can now teach people what you need by the way you communicate and help them understand who you are. Let's stop pushing us on other people and let other people come to us so that we can show them who we are, right? And if they care about you, they'll learn about it. They'll learn about you. And here's my wife. Look at this. This is my wife. I love her so much. Not taking responsibility for our actions destroys trust. That's her thing. And remember, this show was brought to you by my wife. She wanted me to do a show on relationships and just, ooh, look at that. See, we gotta go. The wife has spoken. Yeah, see, I love it. And let's leave on this note. All right, guys. That concludes this show. We're so grateful for you guys being with us every Friday. Hang out with us. If there's ever a show that you want me to do, give me some themes, some topics, and I will do a show around your itch because you are a leader you're a leader worth following, and you matter, my friends. Peace out, and we'll